They always said you could tell a lot about a person by the way they treated the cleaning staff. But no one was paying attention when Evelyn Johnson, wearing a worn-out uniform and pushing a cleaning cart, walked into the pristine offices of Pinnacle Enterprises in downtown Chicago. With her hair tied back, head lowered, and hands calloused from years of hard work, she was invisible to everyone. The executives in their designer suits and polished shoes barely noticed her. To them, she was just another worker cleaning up after their mess. Little did they know, Evelyn was about to change everything. It was just another Tuesday morning when one of the top executives, Greg Matthews, scoffed at her as she cleaned the glass windows in the boardroom. "Hey, make sure you don't leave streaks this time, okay? Some of us have important meetings here," he said with a smug grin, barely glancing her way. His colleagues laughed. Evelyn said nothing, only nodding and continuing to wipe the windows in silence. The truth, Greg's laugh was about to cost him his entire career. As the hours passed, employees came and went, treating Evelyn like she was a fixture in the room, not a human being. They gossiped about her, made jokes behind her back, and dismissed her with a flick of their hands if she was in the way. No one realized who she truly was. No one, that is, except one woman, Jessica Rez, a new hire and recent business school graduate. She noticed how everyone treated Evelyn, but something didn't sit right with her. She had seen Evelyn walk through the office halls with a quiet confidence, her eyes sharp and observant, as if she was watching more than just the dust on the floors. Then, on that fateful afternoon, it all unraveled. The company's CEO had flown in from New York for a highly anticipated annual review meeting. He was the man everyone respected, feared, and admired, James Willard, the ruthless leader who had taken Pinnacle Enterprises to the top of the corporate world. The air was tense as he entered the boardroom, the room falling silent as he stood at the head of the table. But then something unexpected happened. James glanced at Evelyn, standing quietly in the corner with her cleaning supplies in hand. For a brief moment, the room felt like it had stopped breathing. And then, to the shock of everyone in that room, he smiled. "Evelyn," he said warmly, "I think it's time. Don't you?" The board members exchanged confused glances. Greg Matthews, who had mocked her earlier, sat frozen, his arrogant smirk fading. Evelyn calmly put down the rag she had been holding, her movements deliberate. She took a deep breath and turned to face the stunned executives. "Yes, Mr. Willard," she said with the same quiet authority that had been hidden beneath the surface all along. As she walked to the front of the room, a wave of confusion and disbelief rippled through the crowd. Jessica's heart raced, realizing something monumental was about to unfold. "Ladies and gentlemen," James Willard continued, "I'd like to introduce you to Pinnacle's majority shareholder, Evelyn Johnson." The room erupted in gasps, eyes widened, jaws dropped, and silence blanketed the once arrogant group of executives. Greg Matthews sat motionless, his face drained of color. He couldn't believe what he had just heard. Evelyn stood tall now, her presence commanding the room in a way no one had ever expected. For years. She began, her voice steady and calm. "I've watched how this company operates from the inside, not from behind a desk, but from the floors you walk on, the hallways you pass through, the offices you leave in disarray. And what I've seen is a culture that lacks respect and values profits over people. But today that changes." The transformation in Evelyn was unmistakable. No longer the quiet cleaning lady, she was now the powerful force behind the company, a woman who had built herself up from nothing and now owned the very empire they all worked for. From this day forward, she continued, locking eyes with each executive, "Things will be different. I'm not just cleaning up your messes anymore, I'm cleaning up this company." Jessica, standing in the back, couldn't help but smile. Evelyn had been the invisible force all along, and now she was about to make her mark in a way no one would ever forget. As Evelyn finished her speech, the truth settled in. They had scorned her, belittled her, mocked her, but they had never really known her. And now she owned them all. The air in the boardroom was thick with shock and disbelief. Greg Matthews, who just hours before had mocked Evelyn, sat rigid in his chair, his fingers gripping the armrests as if to steady himself in a reality he couldn't comprehend. His mind raced, trying to recall every word, every sneer, every offhand comment he had made. How could he have been so blind? Evelyn, standing before them, was no longer the woman they had ignored or dismissed. She held their futures in her hands, and everyone in that room knew it. The cold corporate world they had built around themselves suddenly felt fragile, like glass ready to shatter at the slightest touch. "Let me be clear," Evelyn said, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade. "This company will no longer tolerate the kind of arrogance and disregard I've seen here. You've forgotten what it means to respect the people who make this place run. Well, that changes now." James Willard, the CEO who had quietly watched this drama unfold, nodded in agreement. It was clear that this moment had been planned long in advance. He and Evelyn had been working together behind the scenes, preparing for this reveal. James wasn't the typical hard-nosed CEO the board had feared. He was more than that. He was a man with a vision that included people like Evelyn who had earned their place through resilience and strength. The executives remained frozen, some whispering to each other in disbelief, while others stared at Evelyn with new humbled eyes. But it was Greg who finally spoke up, his voice shaky and uncertain. "Miss Johnson," he stammered, I didn't know. I had no idea." Evelyn's gaze turned cold as she looked directly at him, her expression unreadable. "No, you didn't," she said calmly. "But that's exactly the problem, isn't it? You didn't care to know. You saw me, but you didn't see me. You never asked who I was or why I was here. All you saw was a uniform, and that's why you'll be the first to go." Greg's face paled. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice cracking. Evelyn looked him straight in the eye, her tone unflinching. "You're fired, Greg. Effective immediately." The room erupted into murmurs as Greg sat back, his hands trembling. This was the same man who had spent years climbing the corporate ladder, cutting down anyone who stood in his way. Now, in a matter of minutes, everything he had worked for was gone. "This is a wake-up call for all of you," Evelyn continued, addressing the entire board. "I may have started at the bottom, but I built my way to the top. I bought this company piece by piece, and now I own the majority of it. Pinnacle Enterprises is going to change, and if you can't adapt, you're welcome to leave." Her words hung in the air, a final warning to the remaining executives. Those who had spent years building walls of superiority around themselves now realized that those walls had crumbled. Jessica, standing near the back, felt a wave of admiration for Evelyn. She had come into the company with high hopes, but had quickly seen the toxic culture that pervaded its ranks. Now she saw the beginning of a new chapter, and she knew she wanted to be part of it. Evelyn turned toward James Willard, who gave her a knowing nod. "Thank you, James, for believing in me when no one else did," she said, her voice softer now. James smiled, his respect for Evelyn clear. "It's not hard to believe in someone who's as strong and determined as you," he replied. "This company needed a leader like you. Evelyn's someone who knows what it means to work for something, to earn it." Evelyn looked around the room one last time, meeting the eyes of each executive. "This is your opportunity," she said firmly. "You can stay and be part of something better, or you can leave. But either way, things are going to be different from now on." With that, she turned and walked out of the boardroom, leaving behind a trail of stunned faces. The power dynamics had shifted in an instant, and everyone knew it. Jessica followed her out, her heart pounding. She caught up to Evelyn in the hallway. "Miss Johnson," she began, her voice full of respect, "I just wanted to say thank you for everything." Evelyn paused, turning to look at the young woman. She smiled, a genuine warmth in her eyes. "You don't have to thank me, Jessica. Just remember one thing: never let anyone tell you your worth. You decide that." Jessica nodded, her admiration for Evelyn deepening. She knew she had just witnessed something remarkable, a moment that would change not only the company but her own life as well. As Evelyn walked out of the office, the city of Chicago sprawled out before her. The skyline, with its towering buildings and bustling streets, felt different today. It wasn't just a city of glass and steel anymore. It was a city where anyone, no matter where they came from, could rise to the top if they had the strength to persevere. And as for Pinnacle Enterprises, well, they'd never forget the day they laughed at Evelyn Johnson, the cleaning lady, who, it turned out, owned it all. Leave a comment if you like this story. Please, it doesn't cost you anything, and you will make me very happy. Thank you, and I look forward to your like.